Good morning, Monday morning. Hope everyone has had a great weekend of Falcons free football after the Thursday night game. I'm Scott Kennedy, your host on the Falcons podcast, and we are going to be breaking down several things, including Bleacher Report had an article today, one breakout player for each team. Talk about who they said, and we'll talk about a little bit about who we think. Want to talk about the season outlook. Where are the Atlanta Falcons? What are their goals? We know their goals. We are play to win every game. I know. What is a realistic goal for the rest of the season? Does the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning their game and taking over sole position of first place change the outlook a little bit on the 4-6 Falcons? Maybe take a little bit of the pressure off to win every single game. So maybe you can ease in Marcus Mariota, possibly. Desmond Ridder. Bring in a new quarterback. Does he give you a better chance to win? It's debatable. It's debatable. Something I want to talk about with everybody on the chat here. Also, if we have time, I want to talk a little bit about the NCAA Players Union rep sent an open letter, and addressed the NFL about the dangerous of one of the certain kinds of turf called slit turf. Was not grass. I couldn't tell for sure until they actually said that it was which one it was. It didn't say artificial or not. It is one of the artificial turfs because it's at Detroit. It's at Indianapolis. It is not one of the ones used by the Atlanta Falcons. I'm not sure if they use sprint turf or not. But one of the problems. PFF also did a midseason all-pro report, and we can break down a little bit of that. And they also did the top needs. We've talked some of that before, but it's interesting to see what other people say from the outside looking in, especially PFF, who basically just looks at their grades. They don't necessarily look at the team itself. So want to say good morning to Big Al. Big Al is here this morning. It says, good morning, Scott. Nice, cool day here in South Georgia. It ain't cool up here in, I don't know if you really call North Metro Atlanta, North Georgia, but it kind of is. We're 4 hours from the border, and it's only an hour north to Tennessee. So up here it is cold. It's 32 this morning. So it has definitely gotten cool. And Keith Robbins comes in on Facebook. Good morning, Keith. He says, bring in Ridder. Why not? If I'm going to stick to the company line here, one of the things that Arthur Smith says every single time is we're trying to win football games. We're trying to win football games. We're not necessarily developing. I mean, he'll say develop, moving forward. It's part of it. Part of the plan is to develop these players, but not at the expense of trying to win the games. And that's what he means when he says that. So the question becomes, and I posed this question on Friday, does Desmond Ridder, if he doesn't give you the best chance to win in the first quarter of the first game that he's in, what does his timeline look like? Because right now, Marcus Mariota, for the most part, has played okay. He's been average. If you look at ESPN's QBR ranking, he's been top 10 because they factor in the running a little bit better than your standard passer rating does. But does Desmond Ridder, when he improve? He's a rookie. He'll be a rookie. He'll have rookie mistakes. But Marcus Mariota has had some games where he has absolutely hurt the team, where they've lost games because of Marcus Mariota. So where would the team be right now if Desmond Ridder had started? 4-6, worse, better? Last 7 games, where would they be if Desmond Ridder finished the last 7 games? Worse, better? Are they still in this thing? Those are the questions. So if you're in it, if you're asking Keith, why not? That would be why he wouldn't. It's like, because we're still here trying to win every game, and he gives us the best chance to win. But it's something that we may not all agree with at this point, for sure. So I want to welcome in Nick Kendall coming in this morning from Seattle. I'm in Atlanta. Nick's in Seattle, so we are coast to coast for your coverage this morning. Nick, how are you doing, and how was your weekend?
Man, yesterday was a little rough. Broncos will have a chance to exercise those demons later, but not a great professional football weekend, but I'm still riding the high of my Iowa Hawkeyes taking it to the Wisconsin Badgers. So doesn't happen every year. So enjoying that. And Iowa's got a chance to win the Big Ten West, which is absolutely insane. For a chance to get beat by 80 by Ohio State, but hey, we get a banner if you get to win the Big Ten West, so I'll take it.
On the college football front, I watched a little bit of who did I watch? God, I've already forgotten. Must have
Alabama,
been
Ole
very.
Miss.
I watched a little bit of Auburn at the end. Watched them play Texas A&M, but I had somebody on in the middle of the game. Was Georgia playing?
I don't remember who.
I didn't watch Georgia though. Who did Alabama play?
Ole Miss. That was a good game.
That's the game I watched. Okay,
Yeah.
I was like, I watched Georgia. I was like, but I didn't watch Georgia. It
Yeah.
was I watched that was, and the thing is that was a hell of a game.
Yeah.
Alabama Ole Miss was a hell of a game.
Yes, it was.
So yes, a good weekend, guys. The counters and stuff are playing games with us. So hit those like buttons. Let me make sure I see you in the comments and stuff. But it's almost as if StreamYard is not counting our Facebook views right now. And I know you're here because Keith is here. At least Keith is here. So Michael Coretti just said, just gave us a like. So I know he's watching. So thank you very much. And chime in some. Dave says, good morning. Good morning, Dave, over on YouTube. And Mark Lindemood says, howdy, Nick and Scott. And Dave also says, if Mariota gives the Falcons the best chance to win, then Bryce Young, whom you like, Scott, might be the way to go. I know there's some questions about his size. He's a little frail. I love Bryce Young. I just, again, we talk about that it factor, the poise, the calmness, the and he's got plenty of arm talent. He's one of those guys, we talk about arm strength. He can kind of get back on his tiptoes, falling away, and still whip the ball 40 yards on the line. I mean, he's got plenty. So, I'm a big fan of Bryce Young. I'm not sure where he will be, but the Falcons are 4-6. That actually puts them with a worse winning percentage than they had last year. That puts them at with the 12th pick right now. But the 7th pick is 3-6, and that is, hold your ears, Broncos fans, the Seattle Seahawks via Denver with because the Broncos are the worst 3-6 team right now. I'm not sure where Bryce Young's going to fall. The guy I wanted, though, and this is one of the storylines for this week, the guy I wanted 2 years ago is coming to Mercedes-Benz this weekend, Justin Fields.
Yeah, man, he's having a lot of fun, and look out, Falcons run defense, because a little different than Donta Foreman running around there, but still one of the most efficient and effective runners in football right now in Justin Fields, playing great football. So will be an interesting game. I know they lost to the Lions, but they gave up 31 points. It's crazy. The Broncos would be 8-1 this season if they averaged 18 points a game or scored 18 points. So it's totally different. But yeah, no, Bryce Young. I like Bryce Young. He's a magician with the football. He's very subtle with the how he runs the rock. I would worry about him in this Atlanta offense because that quarterback position is a pivot for the run game a lot, and he just cannot play a style of football, in my opinion, where he's going to be taking big hits and being exposed to defensive linemen. So obviously, if you have a talent, that's great, and you try to build what's best for them around them at the quarterback position specifically. Yeah, I don't know if I would trade up give up the absolute farm to go up and get Bryce Young personally.
Yeah, like I said, depends on where he falls. If the Falcons are picking top 10 and people have questions about him like that, then maybe. What I'm curious about is let's see, it was Ryan Tannehill, 2019 Pro Bowler under Arthur Smith. Was he? How much did he rush? Because I would think that he only had 185 yards rushing. Despite the fact that he was very efficient passing. I do think that Arthur Smith is using Mariota the way he needs to use Mariota. Wouldn't necessarily say this is the offense. This is how Bryce Young would fit into the offense. It would be much more P in the RPO for the run pass option. So I don't think he would be a wing T guy. I think you'd lean more on what he can do. I think Arthur Smith's good enough to do that.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think that probably you're not going to get up in the range. But it's what it is. We'll have a whole offseason to debate that and kind of get into this a little bit. But I mean, Bryce Young is an incredible talent. If he was 20 pounds heavier and 3 pounds or 3 inches taller, he'd be no doubter.
I'd be playing defensive end. Dave says, guys, can you take us inside Mariota's head on that atrocious pass he threw looking into the Carolina night? That's turned into a meme, hasn't it? Because what's one of the more interesting things about him was as he was falling, there's nobody in the shot, so it was just a perfect picture because there's nobody near him. I put some thought into this, but Dave, Dave, what do you think of Dave's question here, Nick? Are you familiar with the pass where I'm sure you've seen it memed around for sure?
Oh, I watched it live. I was like, what the absolute heck is going on? The only thing I can think of, just giving him benefit of the doubt, is he thought there was a penalty on the play, offsides, or too many men on the field, or something, where you just heave it up because it's a dead play. But that was laughable. Maybe he also knew he was down, just kind of like, oh, do something. But stupid. I mean,
I'm going to make it sound a little better than this. Not great because he never should have. It's tough to throw the ball if you're not sure where it's going. But he had just taken a couple of sacks when he should have gotten rid of the ball. He's out, he's going down, he's spinning, he's disoriented, he's trying to he knows he's out of the pocket. He's trying to fling the ball out of bounds. Now, would it have gotten past the line of scrimmage? He's pretty close towards the line of scrimmage when it happened anyway. So he was coming, I think so. He may have swung out so wide that he didn't get near the line of scrimmage. But he's trying to just fling the ball out of bounds. And he's disoriented and he's spinning and going down, which is why you don't do that. But that, to me, Dave, that's what was going on with Marcus Mariota was I'm just trying to get rid of it, not take another sack because he took a couple trying to extend plays where he should have gotten rid of the ball and didn't. So my question, watching Tampa Bay win and moving to what's their record now? Did they have a bye week? So they're
500.
Are they? So they're 5 and 5. They're 5 and 5. Okay, so it was one game. Okay, yeah, that's one game. I'm mathing. The 17-game schedule is just frying my brain. So the Falcons are 4 and 6. They needed to win to stay even. They didn't. They've fallen behind now. Does that change the mentality at all? The possibility at all that we could see Desmond Ridder, or does it matter? As you fall away, you've got 10 days to prepare. I didn't want to see Desmond Ridder thrown into the fourth quarter of a game where the offensive line was getting whipped either. I didn't. It was a bad situation to put a rookie quarterback in.
In the rain too.
Yeah, it was just terrible. I don't want to put him in there and have him get killed, and just ruin his confidence. There was no good that was going to come out of that situation. But Chicago Bears defense isn't very good. You're at home. You've got 10 days to prepare. Now, the question is going to come up again this week. It's all that anybody's ever asking. When do we see Desmond Ridder?
I mean, with the extra time to prepare, this seems like as good of a time as ever to get it done. The Bears probably have the worst defensive personnel in football right now. After they traded Quinn and Smith, they're just a horrible defensive team. So this definitely seems like one where the Falcons could get Desmond Ridder ready. I think if they don't, the next pivot would be the bye week coming up here, and so 3 more weeks. But this definitely feels like a game where you can make it simple for Ridder. The only thing that could make it difficult for him is that if you have to play keep up, because the Falcons defense is giving up points left and right on the other end to Justin Fields, Darnell Mooney, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's definitely possible. It will come down to obviously how things are going in practice, how the locker room feels, and Arthur Smith. But I mean, these last few games for Mariota have been horrible. The drop back pass game has been bad. There's been a lot of deep passes left on the field where even just, giving the guys a shot to go up and get it. Maybe you can get a pass interference or something, but some of them haven't even been close in the same neighborhood. So again, we're not in the practice, we're not in the locker room, but I definitely think we're as close as we've ever been.
And that's kind of what I say, unless it's completely obvious one way or the other. It was one of those, when we hear talk about, we needed to see him play because then we would have known. Well, if it's obvious in practice, then they know, but if it's close, then you really have to see a guy play. It's like, okay, we're not really sure what we've got until we see him play, but you can watch a guy in practice and say, okay, he ain't it. I've did combines where I felt bad. They were free and I didn't want to turn anybody away, but it's like, watch a kid run. I'm like, okay, just keep running to the parking lot. You're wasting my time. You're wasting your time. You're wasting everybody's time. Just keep going. I'd say that internally. If he's one of those guys, well, then he probably never should have been drafted in the 3rd round. But I feel like we saw enough in the preseason, and we've seen enough in college to know that he's not going to play any worse than Marcus Mariota did last week. And again, it wasn't all on him, but a lot of it is on him. And he's had a couple of those games too, where Mariota has been the problem. Here we go. Here it was Make You Fumble. I thought Make You Fumble says, people called me crazy when I said the Falcons should have drafted Justin Fields. We didn't need a tight end in the 1st. Hooper was a 4th round and produced. Hooper's playing well right now, and so is Hayden Hurst. Falcons at the time also had Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. Now, we didn't know that Julio Jones had asked to be traded at the time. He pressed the issue a little bit when moving forward. Then it became more public. But yeah, I wanted to trade down and accumulate picks first, and then my second was Justin Fields. The 3rd player I probably would have taken at the time was Penny Sewell at tackle. And then because McGarry had been so bad and premium position, and there was not an edge, there wasn't a pass rusher that you were going to take it for. If it was a year before, it would have been Aiden Hutchinson or Walker or somebody you would have taken there at 4, but there wasn't a pass rusher there. But this is you're seeing why I didn't want to take a pass catcher in the last 2 drafts. I was pretty adamant about not taking Drake London as well.
You'd still probably be near the same situation for talent-wise in the roster. So the pass catchers, especially given what they're getting paid right now, I mean, the open market, you almost have to pay that premium position. At some point in the offseason, Scott will have to do an analysis or something to see what the hit rate is.
Joe's got the picture. Sorry, Nick, but Joe's got the picture. He made it as that's just bad. He made it as what do you call this? An avatar profile picture.
Yeah. And Joe Cannon makes a good point about Micah Parsons was there at 4. The issue with Micah Parsons is that he sexually assaulted a teammate, and there was also a few other incidences with him. So he's a great player, but there was some off the field incidences that pushed him down, that had him off. I know for a fact he was off a good number of teams' boards, given the off field stuff.
That and just as a pure inside linebacker, I actually wrote it up though after his pro day that his showing was good for the Falcons. Did Micah Parsons I think I titled it, did Micah Parsons just run his way into the top 5? Because his pro day was unbelievable. Yeah. And I also linked in every single draft article I wrote was the article I wrote in January of that year. Justin Fields is the pick. Justin Fields is the pick. I just and then the day after the 1st round, I said the Falcons cannot continue to ignore their needs on day 2, like they did when they took the pick. But that's neither here nor there right now.
And the other thing with Parsons, real quick, is that it took a creative mind to use him. Because if you played Micah Parsons in the what's his name? Kuechly kind of role, or even like a Devin White kind of role, he would be fine, but not great. What makes Micah Parsons special is his ability to play edge rusher, especially on pass downs, and pin his ears back. So it took somebody put him in the right situation, no doubt. And I know Scott was a big fan. I was not a big on using the linebacker because I thought he'd be purely off ball, and people were like, oh, you got to take a linebacker to cover tight ends. That's not his game. Coming downhill as an elite athlete is his game. So took the right type of mindset, and I'm really glad Dallas has used that because he's been good for the game, and also glad that he stayed out of trouble because, again, it was an issue for him at Penn State.
Yeah, I don't know I roll my eyes at some of the things just because there's so many people that are trying to strike the lottery in the civil the civil court system, that the frivolous stuff comes out all the time, and the gotcha moments. And then I started reading this. I was like, never mind. This is bad.
Gross. Yeah.
That one was bad on him, but hopefully everybody is feeling better, how to put it. And then he's cleaned himself up some and has repented. So 4-6, going into the game, the Falcons had like the second easiest remaining schedule is for the season outlook to finish the season? Is it still playoffs, or did the Carolina Panthers game kind of rain some cold water on that on Thursday night?
It definitely brings some cold water on that. That was a game that you had to go in there and be the better team and look competent. And the Falcons look so far from competent in this one. The offense, the defense. I guess you still have time to get it right. The Bears are not a very good team, despite what Justin Fields has been doing here recently. Not perfect by any means. Threw a pick 6 this weekend too, but a lot of explosive plays. So I would be worried, no doubt. But you had it right there in front of you. All you had to do is kind of figure out what's going on in the defense and move the rock. And you got as exposed in the trenches in this game as we've seen all season. This looked like the Falcons team that I think Scott and I both expected to see more often this season. The offensive line couldn't get the run game going. There was a lot of static, pure drop back passing sets where the offensive line got kicked. Colby Gossett, God bless him, was not very good. Jake Matthews running in flip-flops. McGarry kind of looked like the McGarry that we were kind of a little bit worried about in those pure static dropbacks. And the defensive line just got toasted. The linebackers in the defensive line. Donta Foreman, he's a big back. I wouldn't say he's the world's most talented back, but you just got leaned on the entire game. And I know the Panthers have invested heavily in that offensive line over the last few years. Taylor Moton, Ike McQuanu, Austin Corbett. So they have some investment on the offensive line, but not to that extent where you guys are getting leaned on.
Well, more importantly, maybe not more importantly, but the other part of this is, you say this was the Falcons' offensive line and trench play that we were expecting. This was also the line that we were expecting from the Carolina Panthers. Mm-hmm. When the Carolina Panthers decide to buck up and be good in the trenches, they're really good. Mm-hmm. Where have they been? I mean, this is why you get a coach fired in the middle of the season. But if they stand up and play, they're good. Especially in the defensive line. So again, as Arthur Smith said, you all are focusing on the quarterback. What about the rest of the team? It wasn't just the rest of the team. And Jason coming in on YouTube has a good point here. He says, as long as AJ Terrell and Casey Hayward are out, we are in trouble without being able to put points on the board to offset. And the Falcons they played one more game than a lot of teams, but they still have like the 6th most points in the NFL. So they're still hanging around a top 10 scoring team, which is unbelievable to me. I think it's a phenomenal job from Arthur Smith. And he gets after a loss like this, he gets a lot of shtick. And I understand. Again, $100 million in payroll. It's like 107 right now. It's 50% of a team. It's put together with patchwork, and they're competitive. They're certainly not the worst one out there. And actually, I wanted to come back to a comment that I saw earlier. Dave says, you guys have followed the entire league. Have the Falcons become the national joke of the NFL, taking over for the Jets? And Mark Lindemann says, no, the Broncos have taken that spot. No, you're both wrong. It's the Las Vegas Raiders. Josh McDaniels, after losing to Jeff Saturday to go 7-24 in his last 31 games, after taking a team that went to the playoffs and losing to a guy that got pulled out of a booth and had 3 days to prepare with a 37-year-old Matt Ryan at home, is the national laughingstock of the NFL right now. It's Josh McDaniels.
What teams have the Raiders beaten? Oh, the Broncos. That's right. At least the Raiders also have their first-round draft pick. But my biggest thing that Broncos are going on for them this week is that everybody's eyes in the NFL was on the Bills and Vikings, so people didn't see the wet fart that the Broncos had on the field on Sunday. But I digress. The Raiders are laughing.
If I can find splits, I'll find it. But I want to see the Falcons' record when they're the only team playing. Not counting playoffs, because if they've made the playoffs, they're generally pretty good, even though they still find a way to embarrass us in the Super Bowl twice. Yeah. But their Monday Night Football record is awful. Thursday night is awful. So yes, it's bad. But the title of the show here was Breakout Players. Bleacher Report came out with Arnold Ebiketie, and I feel like I touched on this a little bit because Desmond Ridder could be a breakout player for the Atlanta Falcons. Could be. The kid can fly. I mean, that's the thing that, it's like, oh, we're going to lose Mariota's legs. Maybe. Mariota's probably a little bit more of a natural runner. But when he's missing wide open passes, I don't care if you can run. You still have to be able to play quarterback in this league. You still have to be able to throw the ball. And he's skipping the ball to Kyle Pitts. He's overthrowing people. He's holding on to the ball too long, trying to do too much, which he admitted. That I just feel like if you don't see Desmond Ridder this week, it's going to take an injury.
Yeah. I could see them going to him if they lay an egg 2 of the next 3 games, offensively speaking. You have the bye week then pretty late, which gives you even more time to prepare.
Late.
Yeah, so that I don't think it's Desmond Ridder or bust this week, barring injury, because you have the bye week, and then also you finish the season with 2 home games. I mean, if you're out of the playoffs, it's really easy to be like, hey, Desmond Ridder, we love you, Ryan, but the last 2 games, at home against Arizona, at home against Tampa, we just need to get some feet wet kind of reps here with Ridder and see if the draft doesn't fall the way we want, or if we don't love a quarterback in the class, that we at least have an option there and some tape to analyze and some confidence where he's running the offense and whatnot. So I think this is definitely not a get on the train or it leaves the station situation for Ridder this season.
I don't know. Arthur Smith, if he's stubborn. All coaches are stubborn.
Yeah.
He's obstinate about it. And he's a little salty about it, which, again, so what? They don't get to where they are by not believing in themselves. So I understand. But at what point, again, I'd love to see I'd love to know just off the record, like, no, he's been awful in practice, or no, hey, look, Scott, look at the salary cap. Marcus Mariota has a 2-year, $2 million buyout for the most part next year. We're going to give Ridder a full camp and get started because our rebuild begins in earnest in 2023, like I've been saying for 18 months. But in some low pressure games, like you said, if they have 2 home games remaining against the Buccaneers might be playing for something. And again, the Falcons are good enough to hang around 400, and the Buccaneers aren't good enough to run away with it. You just don't know that while they're still anywhere near this thing, and right now it's 1 game from the division, I think it's Mariota.
Yeah, probably still Mariota. This was a bad game, but you got a chance against the Bears here, and I think you probably are a little bit more confident with the floor of the offense with Mariota against the Bears than Ridder, especially with the playoffs still there. Although this really felt like a game you needed to step on the neck and kind of establish yourself as a tier difference than the rest of the NFC South, and you got beat up both sides of the ball. You just did not physically bring your big boy pants to Carolina, unfortunately. But is what it is.
One more breakout player. If I've got a quarterback that's run for back-to-back 100-yard games, I want my fastest linebacker on the field a lot, even if he's just a spy, because I'm not as worried about missing Terrell and Hayward against Justin Fields in the Bears passing game. But his running attack does scare me. And I want Troy Anderson and his 4'4", 240-pound speed out there a lot. Troy Anderson could have a breakout game against the Chicago Bears.
The one thing here with Troy Anderson is that the Bears use a lot of misdirection pre-snap. Where's the ball going? And for the linebacker position, I would take a guy who is a little bit limited, but making the right reads and staying in phase with his hips the right direction versus an athlete who is a dog chasing cars. Not that Troy Anderson is, but that was a concern with him playing, given how many position changes he had in college, how raw he is at the linebacker spot. It's just the processing. So don't take the cheese, be patient, stay in your gap. And if you are a step slow on a read, I think that's probably better than trying to overreact to a read and being out of position and creating a massive lane. You got to be really disciplined.
You play. I said spy, but I didn't. I almost think you can spy him with 2 linebackers. It's like, Troy, you've got this half of the field. Rashawn, you've got this half, or Michael, you've got this half of the field. Don't both you go wide, and then Justin Fields goes right up the middle. But yeah, I think that could be a game to watch. We will dig into that matchup on Wednesday morning. This was the Falcons podcast on our Monday morning. We didn't have a game this morning, so we're going to go right at 30 minutes, but we'll go longer on Wednesday as we dig into the Chicago Bears in earnest and any news that happens to break over the course of the next 48 hours. But we appreciate y'all for joining us this morning. We're going to hop on over to Mile High Huddle and discuss the Broncos and Titans.
Yep.
Watch so much football. I have to it all starts to run together. So the Broncos and Titans from yesterday. So on that note, appreciate everybody being here, and we will see you on Wednesday morning.